2 New Orleans Saints preseason games in the books, 2 to go, starting Saturday night in the Meadowlands. It's the New Orleans Saints against the New York Jets. It is the training camp preview show, preseason game edition. Todd Graffagnini, John DeShazier here. JD, this is the dress rehearsal. Game number 3. We should see the starters for an extended period of time.
Yeah, we haven't seen some starters at all. Drew Brees, Cam Jordan, hadn't seen those guys work in preseason whatsoever. However, now we know for sure that they're going to probably play in this 3rd preseason game. Don't know exactly how long. Offensively, you want to get the efficiency out of the way early. They might play maybe 2.5 quarters. Defensively, same thing. They'll probably be out there 2.5 quarters because you want to see those guys get some stops and you want to see them put together a nice performance before they go into that 4th preseason game.
Well, not only that, JD, but you expect to see the starters for that amount of time for the Jets. So both sides of the ball are going to get work.
Yeah, and you're going to see those starters from the Jets, especially defensively, and we know what the Jets are going to do defensively. They got Gregg Williams as defensive coordinator. That's the former Saints defensive coordinator. He was here when the Saints won the Super Bowl in 2009. He was here for a couple of years after that. He is a pressure guy. He likes to send blitzes. He likes to apply pressure to the quarterback. He likes to make those guys uncomfortable.
Well, let's hear from quarterback Drew Brees saying those types of situations, the pressure that he might see from Gregg Williams, is how you prepare for the regular season.
You got to be ready for everything, you know. That's Gregg's aggressive style. I like that aggressive style, you know. I mean, I think he's a very talented defensive coordinator and has had a lot of great defenses over the years, you know. So I think it's great preparation for us, you know, for what we could possibly face throughout the year. So I think the more, I would prefer to challenge ourselves by going up against good defenses like that, as opposed to just stuff that's real vanilla, you know, that isn't going to, you know, give you stuff that, you know, you feel like is really going to carry over to what happens during the regular season. You know, regular season, people are throwing everything at you, right? So I think that's what helps us get better.
Well, JD, veteran linebacker Demario Davis, in a sense, is going back to where he started. He was a linebacker for the New York Jets for 5 years. He's obviously played very well as a New Orleans Saint. Let's go to Demario Davis. Talks about heading back to the Meadowlands.
I think it's kind of a little bit of both. You know, at one point it kind of feels like yesterday, because it feels like yesterday sometimes, like you just got drafted the first go around, and can feel like yesterday when I left and went to Cleveland and came back and had a good year there, and then sometimes it feels like a decade ago because so much has happened since then. You know, like the journey that we had last year. But I think that's just part of the game. You know, it goes by fast, but at the same time, you know, all the years add up.
Well, JD, defensive end Trey Hendrickson has been the talk of camp really for the last week. Outstanding practices against the Chargers. We know what he did in the game. He looks to continue his impact on Saturday against the Jets.
Yeah, he's been wearing people out on the offensive lines, whether it be his teammates or we saw against the Chargers, a guy who's been able to get to the quarterback or apply pressure or just get the quarterback off the points that he wants to be on. He's really, I think, had his best camp as an NFL player.
Let's go to his running mate Cam Jordan and Trey Hendrickson on how Hendrickson has improved in this camp.
I think there's a growth in the NFL from your rookie year, second year, third year. I take every season the same, you know, mentally and physically. So kind of work the same every offseason, but you know, there's good communication with the coaches on what they wanted, and I'm here to do my job.
He's heading to his 3rd year. He's got the hang of the defense. At this point now, he's playing faster. Anytime you can play faster, it means you know your playbook for speed, and that's what we're looking for. Not just knowing exactly your plays, but how well you can execute them, and that's where he's at right now. He takes the field with the right mentality. Every time he plays, he gives his 100%. And you can't ask for more than that.
When we return to the New Orleans Saints preview show, we'll go one-on-one with defensive coordinator Dennis Allen.
Thanks for staying with us here on the New Orleans Saints training camp show. I'm John DeShazier with Saints defensive coordinator Dennis Allen. And DA, we've seen this visor. We've seen other guys wear visors, but we've never seen you yank yours off and fly. Where's the frustration? Come on.
Well, look, certainly I think you could ask the players that there's times where there's some frustration, and certainly I think they would tell you that they pretty much know where they stand with me, you know, regardless of you know, how we're playing or executing. But look, I think one of the things that we preach to our players is, and you have to have emotional stability. You have to be under control, and I think that I think your players are a reflection of you as coaches, whether it be the coordinator, position coaches, head coaches, whatever the case may be. And so, if I create a sense of panic, then I think that trickles down to the players. So I think you got to always, create that sense of calmness, create that sense of confidence. And I think it'll reflect in your players.
Now, I know you've got a lot of guys coming back on this defense, and obviously you restart every year, nothing carries over, but how comforting is it to have guys who've been in the system who have a better understanding of what you want?
Well, certainly it's a comforting feeling, and certainly, we have the ability to do a lot more, being that it's the second and third year in the defense for a lot of these players. And so I think, when you're coaching and you're trying to explain the concept of what you're doing, it's easy for those guys to understand because they've had a season or two of seeing what we're talking about. And so certainly I think that's a comforting feeling for me as a coach, but I think it's also a comforting feeling for the players.
Okay, now unit by unit, we're going to run them down. What do you like about your defensive line? You're going to start the season without Sheldon Rankins, but you made some additions there, Malcolm Brown and Mario Edwards Jr. And you have Cam Jordan back, have Marcus Davenport back in his second year. What are some of the things you like about that defensive line?
Yeah, certainly I think we're a bigger group than what we've been in previous years. I think we're a big physical group. Certainly one of the things that I'm looking for is an increase in the pass rush. And I think that'll come as we continue to incorporate some things into some of these preseason games and some of the things that we're going to do throughout the regular season. I think we'll see a little bit more versatility and a little bit more pass rush in terms of that. But I like where our defensive line is. I think it's a talented group. I think it's a deep group, specifically at the defensive tackle position. And I think there's some really good battles going on in camp.
At linebacker, we saw what Demario Davis did statistically last year and how he acclimated to the system. We know A.J. Klein's been around for a while. Looks like Alex Anzalone had a fantastic season last year. What excites you about that group?
Well, again, I'm excited about that group because I think that's a really smart group. I think they understand football. They understand the game. Certainly, each one of them has their skill set that we try to utilize. But I think it's a good group of players. There's some man coverage players that are in there. There's some zone coverage players that are in there. There's some guys that have some good rush ability. So I think it's a versatile group, and certainly we'll find roles for each one of those guys to help us win games this year.
Now, secondary-wise, I think we know pretty much the starters back there. Marcus Williams at safety, Von Bell at safety, cornerbacks Eli Apple, Marshawn Lattimore. But how do you feel about the development of the guys behind them, the support system behind them?
Well, I think it's an improved group. I think it's a fairly deep group. Certainly, we do have a lot of young players back there. But I think when you're talking about kind of the frontline players right now, they might be young, but they're not really inexperienced. Certainly a couple of rookies back there, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Saquon Hampton. There's a learning curve that those guys have to go through, but we're excited about the prospect. I think that's got a chance to be an improved group this season.
All right. Well, that's in the Dennis Allen, and we will be back after this break.
Final segment of the New Orleans Saints preview show right here on CST as the New Orleans Saints get set to take on the New York Jets at MetLife Stadium. John DeShazier, Todd Graffagnini with you. JD, Drew Brees has had a lot to work with in this training camp, a lot of young guys to throw the football to. So again, everyone anxious to see how he's going to kind of go in the offense with some guys that he has not thrown the ball to in live action.
Yeah, well, think about it. Michael Thomas missed the first several practices due to his contract dispute. Ted Ginn Jr. has received a couple of maintenance days, so he hadn't really gone at it. So now you got Traquan Smith as the oldest Saints receiver in that room, and he's just in his second year. Keith Kirkwood has missed some time this year. Austin Carr has been a guy who's young, and he's been around. Semi Cobb. So he's got a lot of young guys in there that he's trying to get into the mix, get them comfortable with what the Saints are doing offensively.
Well, here's quarterback Drew Brees on his relationship on the field with these young receivers.
What I've found with our guys is the biggest jumps typically take place during the second training camp, right? So you get through training camp 1, you get through season 1, and then you have an entire off season You have a whole July and then a whole nother training camp to get through to season 2. When these guys enter that second year and all of a sudden, you know, the light bulb for them begins to come on, there's a comfort level with the offense, there's a lot less thinking and more just playing and reacting, more second nature stuff starts to happen. And so they start playing with a lot more confidence. And then things just begin to click. And we're on the same page. You know, it's a lot more subtle communication as opposed to needing to stop and really go through and explain a lot of things. Because now you've been able to develop that rapport and some experience level together. So I think this is a good time for us right now, getting some of these young guys to that point.
Well, that's all the time we have on the New Orleans Saints preview show. For John DeShazier, I'm Todd Graffagnini. Don't forget, Game 3, Saturday night from MetLife Stadium in the Meadowlands, New Jersey. Can be seen at 6:30 on Fox 8. Joel Myers, Jonathan Stinchcomb, John Vilma on the call with Megan Payton on the sideline on WWL Radio. It'll be Zach Street, play-by-play. Color analyst is Deuce McAllister. Can't wait for game number 3. I know you can't as well. We'll see you next week for another edition of Training Camp right here on CST.